My wedding day was meant to be the happiest day of my life. I had dreamed about it for years. The dress, the people, the love. But deep down, I knew something would go wrong. My sister, Helen, had a way of making everything about her. When I told my family the date, she barely reacted. Then she said something strange. "It's fine if our weddings are on the same day, right?" I froze. At first I thought she was joking, but she wasn't. She had planned her wedding for the same day as mine. My heart sank instantly. I didn't say anything to her then. What would have been the point? Helen had always gotten away with everything. Our parents adored her. She was beautiful, popular, and always in the spotlight. I was the quiet one, the one they forgot in the background. Even when I achieved something, it wasn't enough. Helen, with her glowing smile, could ruin everything and still be praised. When she picked the same wedding date, I knew it was on purpose. She wanted everyone at her celebration, not mine. But I told myself I wouldn't let her steal this moment. I would move forward anyway. As the months passed, I kept planning. Ryan, my fiancé, was kind and supportive. We decided on a small wedding with only close friends and his family. After meeting my side, his parents understood why. My family didn't care. They barely responded when I shared my engagement news. But Ryan's parents? They treated me like a daughter from the start. For the first time, I felt like I belonged. I tried to focus on that warmth and not the coldness I came from. Still, Helen's shadow loomed over everything. I knew she wasn't finished. Something told me more was coming. 3 months flew by. The day finally arrived. I stood in front of the mirror in my wedding gown, heart racing. Despite everything, I felt hopeful. Maybe today could still be beautiful. Friends gathered around, offering hugs and kind words. The music played softly. Then, just as the reception started, I saw her. Helen, in a wedding dress, at my wedding. My breath caught. "What are you doing here?" I asked. She smiled like nothing was wrong. "Your reception looked more fun, so I came to see." I clenched my teeth. But I wouldn't let her ruin this day. Not again. Let me tell you how it started. My name is Patricia. I'm 29 years old, and I've worked at the same company since graduating high school. I started at the bottom, worked hard, and slowly built a life I was proud of. 3 years ago, I met Ryan. He was different, gentle, patient, and honest. He made me feel seen. One evening, he got down on one knee and proposed. I was shocked. "Are you sure?" I whispered. "Of course," he said. "It has to be you." That moment changed everything. But I still hadn't told him the truth about my family. Unlike his warm, loving parents, mine were cold. Helen was their favorite. Even as kids, she got everything. New clothes, special meals, praise. I got hand-me-downs and silence. Every birthday, Helen received a bigger gift than me, even though it was my birthday. I was the forgotten daughter. She was the shining star. I worked harder in school, hoping they'd finally notice me. Once, I ranked first in my class. I rushed home, excited. My mom frowned. "Don't stand out. You'll embarrass Helen." My heart broke. I realized I could never win their love. That's when I stopped trying to impress them. Helen wasn't just loved, she knew she was loved more. She used that power often. As kids, she'd steal my things, knowing no one would stop her. In middle school, she found out I liked a boy. And days later, they were dating. She made sure I saw them together, laughing, holding hands. I kept my pain quiet. If I said anything, I'd be blamed. Helen even told my secrets to others, turning me into a joke. My parents never cared. If I cried, they scolded me. So I stopped crying. I learned to live in the shadows, silent, small, and invisible. I found peace in learning. Books didn't mock me. Knowledge didn't play favorites. But when it came time for college, my parents shut the door. "We've wasted enough on you," my mother said. "Get a job and pay us back." I was crushed. My teachers tried to help, but there was nothing they could do. Luckily, one teacher helped me find work. I started small but rose quickly. I earned respect on my own. Still, I kept my distance from my family. I couldn't take more hurt. When I moved out, I finally felt free. I swore I'd never go back. Then I met Ryan. Slowly, the idea of introducing him to my family became real. He wanted both families to meet. I hesitated. "They're not like yours," I warned. Still, I arranged a lunch meeting. My parents didn't care, until I offered to pay for a fancy restaurant. Then suddenly, they were interested. Helen, too. They came only for the food. During lunch, they ignored Ryan's parents, focusing only on the meal. But when his parents praised Helen, my family lit up. "She's our pride," my mother gushed. My heart sank. Even now, I was invisible. I wanted to disappear. After the meal, my family left without saying goodbye. Ryan's mother looked at me gently. "It's worse than I imagined," she said. I nodded. "I'm sorry." Ryan squeezed my hand. "This isn't your fault." His mother added, "From now on, think of us as your real family." Her words filled a hole I hadn't realized was still open. For once, I felt loved. After that, I tried not to think about Helen or my parents. We focused on our small wedding plans. But then, out of nowhere, Helen called. She never called. Something in her voice made me feel uneasy again. "I'm getting married too," she said casually. "Come meet my fiancé next Friday." Then she hung up. Just like that. When I met him, I instantly disliked him. He looked me over and sneered. "You're plain. A high school graduate, right?" he said. I froze. I had a degree and a respected job. He didn't care. "You're not worth knowing," he added. I got up to leave. That's when Helen dropped the bomb. "Our weddings are on the same day." She smirked. "But yours is small anyway, right?" My hands shook. She had planned this, to steal attention, to humiliate me. That night, I told Ryan. He was shocked. Then he smiled slightly. "If they won't come, let's invite everyone else." I blinked. "You mean make it big?" He nodded. "Helen only wants you to feel small. Don't let her win." His words lit something inside me. For the first time, I saw a way to fight back without anger. We changed our plans. We invited friends, co-workers, even people from his father's company. Slowly, the guest list grew. We didn't tell my family. They wouldn't have cared. But I felt power again. This wedding wouldn't be about proving anything. It would be ours. The day arrived. People poured in. Friends laughed. Music played. The atmosphere was warm and alive. For the first time in my life, I felt surrounded by love. Then, in the middle of the reception, I saw them. Helen, her husband, and my parents. They looked stunned. Helen walked toward me. "Why are there so many people here?" she asked. "I thought your wedding was supposed to be tiny." I smiled. We changed the plan. Her eyes narrowed. Her husband scanned the room and went pale. "Wait, these people, they're from the company?" he whispered. That's when he realized the truth. "They work for my father-in-law," I said calmly. Just then, Ryan's father walked in. Helen's husband turned white. "That's the president," he whispered. My father-in-law smiled coldly. "I heard you planned your wedding to clash with ours. Why?" Helen's husband panicked. "It was her idea." He pointed at Helen. "She wanted to ruin her sister's day." Helen gasped. "You liar. You said humiliating her was fun." They started arguing, right there, in front of everyone. My father-in-law snapped. "Enough. "This is my son's wedding. Show some respect." Helen's husband ran out. Helen chased him. Their wedding had fallen apart, just like that. My parents stood there awkwardly. For once, they had nothing to say. They tried to join the reception. "Patricia's always been reliable," they muttered. I stared at them coldly. "You don't belong here. Please leave." "How dare you talk to us like that?" my father shouted. I didn't flinch. "You've done enough damage." At Ryan's father's request, the staff escorted them out. The moment they left, the room felt lighter. The night was filled with laughter, music, and dancing. People celebrated with joy. For the first time in my life, I felt peace. I had finally taken back control of my story. After that day, Helen's engagement ended. Her fiancé was humiliated and lost all chance of promotion. My parents, who once spoiled her, disowned her in anger after spending a fortune on a failed wedding. I heard they blamed each other, but I no longer cared. I had cut them all off for good. Ryan and I returned from a perfect honeymoon. He joined his father's company, and I became a housewife, managing our peaceful home. Every morning, I wake up with gratitude, not because everything is perfect, but because I finally learned how to protect my happiness from those who never could.